that's talked about down there that tie up conversations that could be had on bills of substance. But for the most part, if we only have 45 days to destroy everything as opposed to a full year to destroy everything.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody out. This is the Roy City Council meeting for February 21st, 2023. Time is now 5:32. I want to recognize that we do have Councilmember Scadden, Councilmember Sophie Paul, Councilmember Wilson, and Councilmember Joe Paul with us tonight. We've asked Councilmember Scadden, Randy, if he would go ahead and give us a moment of silence and lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance. Randy?
If you can all just join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. If you can recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, we've got some consent items, specifically January 3rd, 2023, January 17th, 2023, and January 24th, 2023, Roy City Council meeting and work session minutes. We also have a request for alcoholic beverage license at the MK Fuel Incorporated, located at 3971 South, 1900 West. Council, any comments or questions about this?
Those minutes have been cleaned up significantly, and there were just a few minor changes now, which I've already submitted to Brittany.
Okay. And so you got those minutes? Okay, okay, corrections, perfect. Anything else, Council? Okay, welcome. Then, do I have a motion then to approve the consent items with the changes?
I move that we accept the consent items with the changes as noted.
Okay, thank you. Who gave me the second?
I did.
Joe, thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thank you. This is a public comment period. If you'd like, please step up to the mic. Talk about anything you'd like to talk about. Just give us your name and your address. Anybody? Okay. Public comment period. Okay. If you sit down, I'm going to assume you don't have a public comment, but if you're walking, just give us your name and address.
That was
Thank you.
smooth, Dennis. That was smooth.
Sorry, Dennis Brown. Sorry I'm late. We left 15 minutes ago, but the 1900 is about 2 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's terrible out there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
I just had a couple of questions about the agenda tonight, and I know it's our chance to ask questions before you guys talk about them. But I saw you're going to talk about the sign on 5600 South again.
The sign.
Uh-huh. And are you going to be doing a vote on something on that today, or?
Actually, to be honest with you, here's what got us to this point. There was a discussion that took place previously. It was decided by the council to table it. In light of the fact is needed clear guidance in terms of what UDOT was going to do with the widening of 5600.
Okay.
UDOT has indicated they're not going to do anything and affected that side of the street, so our sign there will not be impacted. So I needed to come back to the council and ask them what do they want to do going forward. So if you have a comment, please share it with us.
Oh, well, other than the fact, I don't think it should be taken down.
Okay.
That was, and we talked about that earlier, and I appreciate the council deciding to do that. The other question I saw on here was I think it was a motion to address the budget today.
This budget, it's going to happen here in a few
And
minutes.
I was just wondering, what was that for from the budget you proposed 6 or 8 months ago? Is that you, Matt?
Yeah, I can certainly answer some questions regarding it. There also will be a public hearing with it.
Okay,
That you can make public comment during that time as well, but there's really just 2 items
okay,
that was discussed, so.
Yeah.
okay.
So we'll open up for public hearing, and that particular conversation will be specific to the budget issues that Amber will talk about.
Okay. And then one last question. I saw that there's a resolution to change the, it's not the third code, but amendment to Public Works, economic development person to have a not a committee, but a department. Is the city planning on, I talked about this last city council, but is the city planning on creating a department for economic development now? Is that what's going to happen, or what's going to be voted upon? I don't understand that motion.
I think Andy can talk to what we're going to talk about in that particular discussion. But go ahead, Andy. You want to share a little thought?
We used to have a community and economic development department in the city, and after the director left to take a new position somewhere else, the city had made a decision not to fill that position, but to take and divide that department and make economic development under the city manager, and then the community services area would go under management services department. Subsequently, that became the community services came underneath the city attorney, and then the city manager has stayed over the economic development part of that. When it was determined that we should have somebody over economic development and have an assistant city manager, then we want to reestablish that department again.
Okay.
It's just a restructure with the existing people we already have.
And it's putting it back to what it was before.
So it's not to increase the size of a department or anything like that? Okay.
It's really to pull them under one person instead of having that department split up between two different.
Okay.
It's really just a paperwork matter, just something to clean up, because in our code, it doesn't have that separate anymore because we had divided it up.
Okay.
So it's just a house cleaning measure.
Okay. All right, Kate, thank you. Appreciate letting me speak, Mr. Mayor, for coming in late.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And when we have the public hearing dealing with the finances, that would be also an opportunity to share your thoughts in terms of any issues of finances.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to share a thought, any topic? Okay, well, thank you for offering some thoughts on a couple of topics that are perfect. We do have a couple of presentations, but I know President Mortensen personally, but I believe you two are going to speak for him in behalf of that. Excellent.
Mayor, he's on his way in approximately 2 minutes. He showed
2 minutes?
So
Okay.
if you don't mind.
That's okay. How about if we ask our Hill Air Force Base Environmental Program, we'll just switch those. If you'd like to step up and just share some thoughts in reference to the environmental cleanup process you guys have been doing for a number of years. Thank you. Council, I believe you have charts on this, and I'm not sure, Brittany, can we bring the charts up for everybody else?
Do you want me to hook up to the TV? Got a cable there. Great. Perfect. All right. My name is Lindsey Burt.
Thanks.
Can you hear me all right? Thank you for inviting us. Okay. How about, no? Is that better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So my name is Lindsey Burt. I'm with the Air Force Environmental Restoration Group. And with me today, also representing the Air Force, are Mark Roginski. He's head of our indoor air program.
And if you could get a little closer, I'm so sorry, still
Okay.
can't quite hear you.
Maybe if I move the whole contraption. Also here is Peifen Tamashiro. She's going to talk to you a little bit about PFAS, just for awareness. And so I put together a little slideshow for you to give you an update on how the contamination originating from Hill Air Force Base affects Roy. So just to give you a little background, In the past, 1940s through 1960s, industrial waste was deposited on the ground or buried on Hill Air Force Base before there was a full understanding of how that would affect groundwater. And then in 1972, Clean Water Act came into effect and other regulations. And so now that's all regulated. But our job is to clean up the contamination of the past. And so volatile organic compounds from these industrial wastes have gotten into the groundwater, and groundwater flows, in this case, to the west, from the west side of base, flows into Roy, but it's in the shallow aquifer, and so that doesn't affect your drinking water, which is taken from a much lower aquifer, and that's naturally protected from the contamination. But we're cleaning it up to drinking water standards. That is our goal. So yeah, we're just here today to provide a quick update and answer any questions you might have. So on base, the remediation, our restoration program is divided into operable units. And operable unit 12 is the one that affects Roy specifically. And the main contaminant of concern is trichloroethene, TCE for short. And that originates on base, of course, and has migrated almost to 3100 west in Roy. And this is the current makeup of the plume, with the yellow areas being the most concentration and the blue being the least. The blue represents 5 to 10 micrograms per liter of TCE, and 5 is the EPA established maximum contaminant level. And so that's our remediation goal, is to get below 5 micrograms per liter. And there's another plume, you'll be able to see better in a later slide, but there's that little bit in Sunset that was in Roy for in 2012 in one well, but it's since retreated. Okay. So this shows the plumes over the last decade, the top being the current status of the groundwater plume, and the bottom being the plume in 2012. And so you can see that other plume, which is part of what we call operable unit 5, affecting Sunset and Clinton, did have a pocket into Roy, but that has since dropped below the contamination levels. And the toe of that plume, the leading edge of the plume in Clinton, you can see it's kind of migrating slightly northwest. And so there's a chance that could touch Roy in the future, but it would be in very low concentrations and likely only a few years until it was below the goal, remediation goal. So we'll keep an eye on that and keep you and our Restoration Advisory Board posted on that. Just to see, this is slide. Just to back up a little bit. We have a couple of remediation treatment systems in place. The one being right on the base boundary, and that's the green line up there. You can see that's the Hill Air Force Base boundary, and the blue line is our base boundary containment system. It's a line of extraction wells that pulls the groundwater out, the contaminated groundwater, and so that it doesn't migrate into the city. It's not catching 100%, but it's very effective, and we're always looking for ways to improve that. And as you can see, the darker colors, the greens and the yellows, are mostly on base, and that area between the city and the base is tapering off into the lower contamination levels. And then our other system, I guess that can't be seen. The other blue line to the west is it was a permeable reactive barrier We buried that in the ground near the old rail line, and that was installed in 2004. It became not very effective as was anticipated over 16 years. And so in 2020, we decommissioned that. So that was just a in-place treatment system naturally with iron and sand to naturally filter that. But as you can see, it's well, let's see. Let's go to this slide again. You can see in 2012, it was effectively treating the bulk of the plume. And so now for that leading edge, part of our remedy is monitored natural attenuation, the natural microbes in the ground and the contaminants themselves will degrade over time. And so we're tracking that as well as treating it at the base boundary. Okay. And so I think that's about all I had, and I'm going to turn the time over to Mark Roginski. It's going to tell you about indoor air. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Mark Roginski, and I'm the Indoor Air Program Manager for Hill Air Force Base. As Lindsay mentioned...
Can you scoot to the microphone, please?
Oh, sorry. As Lindsay mentioned, the primary chemical in the groundwater is called trichloroethene, or TCE. And that's actually a solvent that was used to clean engine parts on the base back in the day. And so it's very volatile. So it actually wants to be more in the air than in the groundwater. And so what we found is where the groundwater is fairly close to the ground surface, that TCE vapors will leave the groundwater, work its way up through the soil, and if there's any occupied building on top of that area, it will work its way through the cracks in the foundations and can pose a potential health effect to anybody that's in that home. So that whole process is called vapor intrusion, and the only way to really tell if vapor intrusion is occurring in a building is by testing the indoor air of the building. And so we're trying to get into every occupied building that's over that operable Unit 12 groundwater plume to sample to see if vapor intrusion is occurring or not. We do have action levels that were established with the approval of the EPA and the Utah Department of Environmental Quality, where if we measure the TCE above that action level, then we would recommend that the owner allow the Air Force to put a vapor intrusion mitigation system. And that figure over to the right there is just a simplified version of that system. It's similar to a radon system, which you may have heard of. Very simple and works very, very well. And then the Air Force does own that system, and so that we can maintain it over the life of the system. And let's see, how do I do the next page? Up, arrow, okay. Oh, yep. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. So what I want to show you here, basically, it's what we call the affected area. The affected area is the potential for vapor intrusion. And so you can see that it kind of outlines the plume that's in Roy City, but what we do is we then step out 100 feet beyond the boundaries of the plume, and we sample those locations as well as just kind of a safety factor. And then we'll move to the next one. Oops, wrong way again. So in that affected area that I just showed you, there's 506 homes and businesses within that area. If you look at the pie chart to the right there, you can see that We sampled 282 of those locations already, and we found that there isn't any vapor intrusion occurring. So that's good. However, we still have 99 locations that that we've never been able to sample before. We've reached out to the folks, and they just haven't responded and said yes. And then we have another additional 100 locations where we have some sampling data in there, but we don't have enough sampling data to determine that vapor intrusion is not occurring. And so we also need additional sampling in those locations. And then finally, you can see the little pie shape at the bottom that's red. We have 25 of those vapor intrusion mitigation systems installed in Roy. So we go through some different processes of trying to outreach the folks in Roy so that we can do the sampling. The first thing that we do is in October, we send them a letter with a self-addressed or a stamped envelope that they can return, and they can say, yes, I want indoor air sampling, and we put them on the list to do that. We also use the city newsletter and social media to get the word out. And then the other thing that we did in January was a door-to-door effort where we actually banged on the people's doors that still hadn't responded to the letters, trying to sign them up on their porch there. And we had a lot of help from Roy City. Mayor Dandoy was actually one of my partners, along with, I got my list here. I do want you to recognize it. There it is. So Alan, Preston, Adam, and Daryl, Roy City employees, all supported us on that door-to-door outreach. And then we also had Roy City firefighters, Rachel, Stephanie, and Austin. So I do want to thank all of them because they did. It was a great help to us to sign some folks up. So the responses that we had from that door-to-door visit, we visited 177 locations, and we signed up 35 people. We're still in our sampling season right now. We go through the month of March. And to date, we've signed up a total of 40 residents in Roy for sampling. We've had 43 that have actually given us a firm no, and then one business that has also given us a firm no. So the majority of the people, we just really haven't received a response from at all. But the good news is we do this every year. Our sampling season, we start in October, and we go through the following March. And so people will have a chance to change their minds. And we'll probably be reaching out to them to sample the indoor air until the plumes are gone, which is going to be many years. I think that is, yep, that's all I have it in case there's any questions.
Do you find that the VIMS units that you've deployed, are they clustered in certain areas of Roy? And do we need to have a higher focus in that, or is it kind of hit and miss?
No, that's one of our challenges is vapor intrusion is very variable.
Okay.
So it can be occurring in one house, but it may
But not
not
in
be.
the next.
Yeah, because otherwise, if it was all the same, we could sample maybe 2 or 3 in a neighborhood and then graduate the neighborhood. But we found that's just not the case. So really, we need to sample every single building to really know if there's vapor intrusion or not. So
Do you find that is because of the location, or is it more because of the integrity of the home? You mentioned you can come up through cracks and stuff like that. So is it more home integrity that makes the difference of
Well, I
who
think
needs the
that
system or
that's
not?
one of the variables for sure. You know, every home's built a little bit different. It's also, you know, the groundwater underneath it may be more shallow in one location than right next door. Vapor intrusion is also affected by you know, different pressures, and so even the heating systems, different heating systems in the house may affect the vapors coming in. That's one of the reasons why we only sample in the wintertime, is because that's the best time that we would detect vapor intrusion if it occurs. We leave our sampling devices in the home for 26 days. That's because vapor intrusion may be occurring in the home one day, and the next day you might not measure it. So if you leave the sampling device in there long enough, you have a better chance of detecting it if it does occur.
I have a question on the unit or the item that's left in the home for testing. Is it a cost to the resident, or is it?
No, the sampling is all free to the resident. If we do have to mitigate, the installation of that mitigation system is free. The Air Force actually owns that, and we would get a lease with the resident in order to allow to keep it in the house.
So ongoing maintenance is covered as well?
And then we also give them $500 a year for the small amount of electricity that it uses. And it's a very simple, let me just go back to the pictures. Is basically, it's a PVC pipe that's connected underneath the ground, connected to a fan, and that fan just continually runs, and it sucks those vapors out from underneath the foundation and out the top of the roof before it can enter into the house, and it's very effective.
So looking at your diagram right there, is that the piece that's put into every home, or is that just in one central location, or is that?
We would only put those in the home if we had a detection above those action levels.
Okay.
And those action levels are based on the risk to health. So anything below that really wouldn't cause a risk to health. Anything above the action level has the potential for a health risk.
When you say it's volatile, does it have a high flash point?
It's not flammable.
Okay.
No.
And just out of curiosity, you've got the permeable reactive barrier that's down in the lower half of Roy. What was that made out of?
Well,
That it's seeping through, because it didn't even stop it. Like, are you deeper? Is it deeper than we're thinking, or?
It's and Lindsay's coming up to help me.
Permeable, like?
Yes, it's a sand iron mix, and the iron would break down the TCE in the groundwater as the water flowed through there.
Okay.
And the reason it was actually put there is because, well, number one, there was a old rail line, so there was access, but beyond that point, the groundwater gets really shallow, and so there's a greater chance of vapor intrusion into those homes at the toe of the plume.
So you were hoping that would stop it, and it didn't stop. It doesn't look like it stopped a lot.
We didn't want to stop the water. We wanted it to clean up the TCE as it goes through the water. And it did do that. And it probably had a life of about 10 or 12 years, but we knew that at that time. So.
But I think, Mark, to your question, you came in after the fact and placed it in there. I would make the assumption is that plume was probably already past that site, and you were just trying to capture anything that was actually still coming down that plume line. Is that a fair statement?
Right.
Oh, okay.
And if you, if you looked at your plume map, you can see higher concentrations up gradient of where that permeable reactive barrier was installed. So.
I think, Mark, what shocked me is we were doing that. You visited 177 locations this last run. We basically only got 35 of those to agree. Certainly, you left pamphlets on every door.
What's the hesitation? Government conspiracy, or?
Well, it's hard to say.
There's probably some of that. I mean, some people don't trust the government in their homes.
I mean, I would worry that if it's potentially health hazard, that I'd want to remediate it.
Sign me up. Yeah. Now, that's my frustration, Mark, because we've been doing this for years now,
right.
And I appreciate the fact you're getting in a few more. But I get frustrated, to be honest with you. We still got 100 homes that, for whatever reason, they're either not reaching back, or as you've indicated, 44 of those said no. And there should be no reason why they can't come and at least test it. My fear is those 44, they're one business, 43 residentials. We just don't know what's under there. And until you check it to verify, we don't know if there's contaminants taking place. And TCE, although you didn't say it clearly, I will say, is a known carcinogen.
It is.
And this is a cancer causer. And my heavens, I would expect the residents to at least allow you to test to verify whether we have a problem or don't have a problem. And not knowing is not an answer, in my opinion. So we'll do our best to keep on this pace. As I've said before, Council, we have put everything you send to us, everything is on the Roy City website. We don't hide anything. If it's bad news, it doesn't get better with time. You just have to tell it the way it is, and you guys are trying to fix this problem. But we have a problem. And Council, it's not just Roy.
No.
Almost every city, around Hill Air Force Base, both on the north, on the south, to the east, to the west, has been touched by these plumes. And we have got to fix this. And the only way to fix it is do what you're doing in terms of mitigation, but equally important, get the message out.
Right.
Mayor, here's just a suggestion. Who's got an upcoming Roy Connection article that they need to write? Because this would be I think you've probably covered it.
I did, but let's cover it again.
Yeah, there's no harm, no foul.
Yeah. And Council, please consider, you've got wonderful information here. Take part of your article on the Council Corner, and please elaborate. They may not read mine, but they certainly ought to read yours. And let's talk about this, because the more they're willing to reach back and ask the Air Force to help, the Air Force is willing to come in and help them. In my opinion, I think save their lives. And if it's not for them, it's probably their children. So whatever we got to do to get the message out. So thank you.
We really appreciate all of your support, truly.
Well, this is so important, okay? We didn't cause this. We just found ourselves having to deal with it.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So, anyway.
And I apologize for our history, but back in the day, nobody knew, right?
Yeah.
The machine shop I used to work at, we use TCE to clean metal parts.
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm the way I am, but.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, Mark, I vaguely remember somebody telling me there used to be an Air Force instruction,
Say that again?
an Air Force AFI, that basically told them where to dump.
I'm sure.
And back in the 40s and 60s, let's face it, EPA was a couple of letters. They didn't understand it. It's nothing like we're experiencing today, and mistakes were made. But we got to clean this up.
And back in the day too, the cities weren't as populated as they are now either, right?
That's
it was
right.
More rural. So you just different way, different times.
I know. Interesting enough, Mark, I'll just share this thought with you. You mentioned 3,100. Along 3,100 and 3,500, we have active artesian wells that actually come all the way to the surface. And so that groundwater that's moving literally from the east to the west, it's deep on some parts of Roy City where this plume is. But at 3,100 along that line and down into 35, that water is on the surface. Now, whether it's contaminated or not, I can't answer that question, but I'm telling you, that groundwater is at the surface level at that location,
Yeah,
so.
and we have measured surface water in Roy, right near that permeable reactive barrier there. At sometimes the water's like just a foot deep.
Right.
So we have measured the water, and it is contaminated there, by the way.
Yeah.
So.
No, we appreciate what you're doing, but it's not hard. It's a hard message to get out. I just wish we got all 177 people stepped up and dealt with this.
Yeah.
I just feel bad we didn't get some of them, so we'll keep working it.
We get a few more each year, and the plumes, they're stable or decreasing, so that's in our benefit as well. But again, it is going to take a long time.
Yeah.
And so we'll be asking you for help with the door-to-door banging in
Bring it on.
2024 probably too.
Yeah, we appreciated the invitation.
Yeah, there's one more slide, which is a good news thing.
And
right.
and I think
You
Chief
might wanna-
We'll take
Chief
that.
Golden would like to listen to this one as well. So
Okay,
please.
So I'm going to turn it over to Payfin Tamashiro.
Was your question answered, Ms. Paul?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening. So that was kind of some historical problems that Mark just talked about, and I'm going to talk about a new group of chemicals that are in the news and in a lot of, actually there's a movie made about it recently. It's called Dark Water, I think. And there's a lot of documentaries out there about this group of chemicals. So I just want to kind of give a brief introduction of this group of chemicals. We call them chemicals of emerging concern. So there are about 9,000 chemicals that have been identified as the group of this group of chemicals. It's called PFAS, and it's called per or polyfluoroalkyl substances. As you can see on top of that, I kind of give two examples up there, like the shape of that chemical. It's a long chain carbon that ends with a fluorine compound of different kind of fluorine compounds at the end. So because of the characteristic of these chemicals, they are used in a lot of consumer products. They're in cookwares, they're in waterproof fabric, some of the raincoats, food packaging, the hamburger wrappers. And for the Air Force, I think the most common occurrence of these chemicals are in the AFFF material, which is the firefighting foam that the Air Force use. It's aircraft foaming foam, but we just know it's the firefighting foams. And you probably know, recently, back in October, there was a F-35 crash on base, and AFFF was used in that incident because it's a very good reagent to put off petroleum fire, and it's very safe. Back then, people think it's I've talked to many firefighters. They almost bath in it. They wash their wash their cars with it. But now we start finding out their potential environmental concern because it's also nicknamed forever chemicals because it's very hard to break down this material, this chemical in the environment. And it could cause some sort of some cancers and high cholesterol. It's like I said, it's an emerging chemicals of concern. So there are a lot of study that's still ongoing. So far, EPA actually only regulate 6 of these 9,000 compounds. So it's new. So I just kind of want to give you a little idea of what this study is about. So we have done some investigation on base, and at this time we've focused on AFFF studies, but we started getting into the other chemicals or the other materials that are not associated with firefighting foams, and that study just started. But I want to kind of give you a big picture of what we have found so far with the focusing on the AFFF materials that as sources of these contaminants. So it's probably not easy to see, but if you look at the map, there are actually 4 light blue plumes. In there are 2 that are in Layton area on the south, and then 1 is in the middle of the base, and then 1 is to the northeast that goes into South Weber. Unfortunately, if you look at this map, Roy is nowhere near any of the plumes, so that's good news for now. But just like I say, the studies are ongoing. Through this program, we have actually coordinated with city personnel to figure out some of the private wells that have been installed in Roy, to make sure that those people that have private wells are actually using city water and not using their private well as their primary drinking water. So far we haven't found any people that are using wells as their drinking water in Roy, which is good news. But because of new sites that we identified, we had to step out a little bit. So we found 10 additional private wells in the city of Roy that we have not coordinated yet. So in the next, I don't know when that contract will come in, but since at this point we don't think anybody in Roy is using private well as drinking water, we just want to verify that. So I wouldn't put too much concern over that. And through the coordination with the public works, we also understand the city water is also from very deep aquifer. So you also don't have any concern at this point with the drinking water. But one point of caution is the risk number or the regulatory threshold has been dropping, like, on quarterly or annual basis. So previously the threshold was set at 70 parts per trillion, and now it's set at potentially 6 parts per trillion. So it dropped about 10 times from previous number. So I would assume the city will start looking into that, with the new.
I'm on the
level.
board for the sewer district, and we're starting to be regulated, and we're watching it because it's coming through
Right,
sewer
EPA,
water.
Right. So anyway, that's kind of the current status of this program. And then as we, continue to progress with all the studies, if there are any update, I will come back in and provide that. So,
I have a quick question for you on that. So, like, you're saying it's closer to the ground and not into our drinking water. So, like, I think of my vegetable garden. Does it affect anything like that? Like, is that a concern?
That is still under study. There are a lot of discussion on that. I don't have the data, or nobody has come up with the conclusion whether the occasional, using the water as irrigation water is a concern at this point.
Your body wash is more likely to have PFAS in it than the groundwater. I mean, that's what we're seeing coming through the sewer.
Yeah.
Facial scrubs, those little micro beads.
Suntan lotion is a
Yep.
big
Oh,
one. Yeah, so that's why sometimes when we do sampling, we don't allow the contractor to wear suntan lotion. So anyway, there are a lot of chemicals in the environment or in our consumer products probably have more of these chemicals.
Okay.
But there are more regulations on using these chemicals in these consumer products. So you can see, like, sometimes when you go to Costco and you're trying to buy a pen and it would say it's PFAS free or PFAS free.
Okay.
So people are becoming more aware of that now.
Okay.
So.
And last question. So the chemical history and the reason why we're here, what are they doing now differently to dispose? Are they disposing of it differently? Are they carrying it away? Or what are they?
Right.
What's Hill Air Force Base doing about that right now?
So that has all been, the AFFF has been switched out now. So we are not using AFFF unless it's emergency situation. So in the old days, we will have these AFFF forms in the dispensing system that we will maybe annually or every 6 months you will have to do a testing. When you do test, then you have to release it. And in the old days, we don't know the the environmental concern related to these chemicals, and it will be released into the storm drain or outside, and we're not managing it, as the knowledge that we have today. And today all of those foams have been switched out, and they would have to be I believe DOD still have a lot of stockpile of these foams that still need to be disposed of properly. And we also are doing a lot of research on how to break down these chemicals. So there are research that we are doing to not just filtering it out and then burning it out. We are actually researching to try to break it down into molecules that becomes innocuous.
Perfect. Thank you. Well done.
All right.
Well done. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. One question for you, Chief. Certainly we're speaking of Hill Air Force Base, but they're not the only airport around here. Do you know if the AFFF is being used at the Ogden Airport?
Switch theirs out as well. They're not using it. They're using a different type of clean foam, similar to what Hill Air Force Base is.
Okay. So we're
Switched all our foam out that we did have. We got it to an environmental cleanup company that took it away, and then we're using coal fire now instead of. We're even switching out our Class A foam as well.
okay. Perfect. Okay.
We'd like to thank you for your time, and are there any further questions before we turn over the time?
Okay.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
All
Great
right.
information. Okay. Obviously, this is going to be an ongoing process, Council. We just need to just be aware of it and try to get the message out to our residents as best we can, including our young residents, okay? Okay, thank you with that. Well, President Mortensen, thank you for joining us tonight. You're going to change the subject on us, I hope.
Well, I could try to stick on the subject, but you all know a lot more about this, I think, than I do. But good evening, everyone. My name's Brad Mortensen. I'm the president at Weber State University. I appreciate being able to take a few minutes this evening to share with you some of the things that are happening at Weber State. And we call this part of our Louder and Prouder tour. I've been president of Weber State for 4 years now, and one thing that drives me crazy is to have people say that Weber State is the best kept secret, because we want to be the best, but we do not want to be a secret. So part of that is to get out and visit with all of you and just kind of share some things that are happening at the university and right here in your community. So I appreciate you providing this opportunity this evening. Anyone know how many Weber State alumni live in Roy City?
Right here.
There's several of you, right?
I have two children
seated behind
currently
me
enrolled.
and attending there. There are 14,776 Weber State alumni who live in Roy.
Is that right? That's
So
awesome.
that's a huge number, and we're very proud of all of them and the association that we have with all of you. We have currently, in addition to your two children, Councilmember Paul, 1,080 students enrolled at Weber State who are Roy residents. 688 of those are our degree-seeking students that attend on campus or online. 376 of those are concurrent enrollment students who are taking classes in high school and taking advantage of that very affordable opportunity to earn college credits that count for high school credit as well, and something that we very much want to promote. We have 71 employees at Weber State who live in Roy City, and you can see there are just a lot of great connections. To highlight a few things that are happening on campus, we just this spring semester, so a little over a month ago, launched our first class in the physician's assistant program that has started up there. That's a 3-year master's program that will help prepare more mid-level practitioners to enter the healthcare workforce, in addition to our doctorate of nursing practice students that we have now. The 4th class for that group will be graduating this spring. We also just got invited, just got invited to the celebration for our first class of our Masters of Social Work graduates who are graduating this April. And I hear a lot from folks all throughout our community about the need for more clinicians and social workers to help with the mental health needs that we have. And so we're very excited to be contributing more in the workforce to that area. As the mayor knows, we've spent a lot of time and emphasis over the last few years trying to support Hill Air Force Base and the needs they have there. And we really are focused in on both the advanced manufacturing side and the software development side, and have a lot of programs happening, growing our engineering programs. We've had 220 graduates now out of our electrical engineering program since it started in 2010, and 93% of those are working in the state of Utah, the biggest majority at Hill Air Force Base, which is just the type of program we feel like it makes sense for us to have at Weber State. But we've continued to add other disciplines, mechanical engineering. We have systems engineering now, which is a really big need for the Sentinel program, both on the base and with Northrop Grumman and BAE. And so we're very committed to participating in those types of programs that meet the workforce needs of our area. Let me give a quick plug about athletics before I introduce one of our outstanding students who is also a Roy resident. Our men's basketball team is currently in 3rd place in the Big Sky Conference. Their last 2 home games are this Thursday and Saturday. Thursday's game is a really big game because Eastern Washington has the longest winning streak in the country in college basketball right now. They won 17 in a row, and they're threatening to go undefeated in the Big Sky Conference. The last team to be undefeated in the Big Sky Conference was the 2003 Weber State men's basketball team. So we're kind of like the 72 Miami Dolphins that want to make sure we beat them Thursday night so we can maintain that honor of having the undefeated team. But just today, one of our players, Dylan Jones, who leads our team in scoring, rebounding, assists, and steals, and is the leading defensive rebounder in the country, was named the Big Sky Player of the Week for the 4th time this season. The last time a Weber State player was named Player of the Week at least 4 times in one season was Damian Lillard, who had a pretty good weekend representing Weber State at the All-Star game, if you saw any of that in the news. But we have lots of great students who aren't just student athletes. One of those is with me tonight. Her name is Brooklyn Matthews. Brooklyn is a member of our Presidential Leadership Fellows, which is a group of outstanding students at Weber State who were nominated by faculty or staff, not because of just their academic accomplishments, but also the engagement that they do across campus, either in community engagement or undergraduate research or other things. Brooklyn is one of our leaders of the PLFs, as we call them. She's the secretary of that group, and I'll turn a few minutes over to Brooklyn to let her share about herself.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all. I'm a student up at Weber State. My major is microbiology, which I never would have been interested in if I hadn't found Weber State. It was truly the staff and knowledge at Weber State that I funneled into microbiology. I didn't even know what microbiology was. I thought it was just looking at tiny little animals and seeing what they were doing, which it's more than that. It's research, it's science, it's medicine. It's truly a part of our lives. But going back on that, I couldn't have gotten that start without the concurrent enrollment program at Roy High, which I went to. The staff at Roy High and the concurrent enrollment opportunities were just so great, and I would have never met Weber State, and I never would have met microbiology. I'm working on some research right now. I'm taking runoff water from Wasatch integrated waste, and I'm growing them on plates to see if they are antibiotic resistant, which that can play into food health, people health, and animal health. And hopefully we don't see too many antibiotic microorganisms in the water, but we'll see. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That's perfect.
What year did you graduate, Roy?
2021.
Awesome.
Oh, interesting.
Weber State, great.
Oh yeah, truly.
Did you know Aaliyah Behringer?
She sounds very familiar.
The student body president that year?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
She was so amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, that's super. Council, any comments, questions you have? Okay. please.
Just want to thank you all again, and if I can leave you with one brag point about Weber State, we a year ago, Georgetown University released a study of 4,500 institutions, higher education institutions, public, private, all types across the United States, to measure their return on investment. And kind of the headline of that story was 30% of those schools, about 1,500 schools almost, do not generate any type of real return on investment for their students, either because they're so expensive or because their programs don't align well with workforce needs. Weber State, was at the other end of that, though. We're the only school in Utah who ranks in the top 10% of those 4,500 schools for return on investment, whether you're 10 years out of school or 40 years out of school. And we think that's a credit to how well our programs are aligned with the workforce, whether it's in health professions or computer science and engineering and many accounting, teaching, social work, like I mentioned. But also we think we have such a great commitment to a personalized education with the faculty and staff there that makes a huge difference for our students as they go out into the workforce to help them be productive. So for those of you who are alumni, thank you for contributing to that ranking, but that's one thing that we hope to try to maintain in the future, that great ROI for our students and our communities. So thank you very much.
Well, I'll testify to that because I was the outstanding graduate in 2000 in the automotive program, and I now manage one of the top 10 fleets in the world.
Yeah, so we, you all do really, we can't do that alone, but I think it's a great brag point, and one that we're very proud of, and one that I hope to keep up as long as I'm there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You do a great job, President. Thank you.
So just a quick comment on your presentation here. Is there a way that you can get us a social media or a Facebook post, something that can be shared with Matt and the staff so that it can get out there? We have a lot of social media in our community that I don't see a lot of Weber State, and I'm on it a little bit.
And especially considering we have like one of the campuses, one of the
I think if you put something that said basically Roy residents, or you know what, kind of like
a factoid
focus it to do that, I think it would go far.
Yep,
resonate. Yeah.
Thank you.
One
That's
of
a great
the
suggestion.
programs I graduated from is named after a Roy resident, the halls, Alan and Jeannie Hall.
Yeah, the professional
So if you'll
sales
post
program
something
is,
or get something to Matt, I'm assuming we can share, and then we're pretty good about sharing that. So
great. We'll probably feed you as many things as you
Something.
care to handle.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Appreciate that opportunity.
Thank
Help us
you,
to be louder and prouder more. So
Thanks, President.
You did
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. Okay. Council, we do have some action items. Let's start with the public hearing. We're going to talk to you about specifically about Resolution 23-7. I think, Amber, before we go into public hearing, I'd like to have your comments. Opening comments kind of set the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. So we only have 2 items that we're adding to the budget at this time. Last summer, we had a lawnmower that caught fire, and we just received the insurance check to replace that for $45,880. This amount will be added to the general fund. It goes into gain on fixed assets, and then what we do is we transfer that over to the capital projects fund so that they are able to purchase a new lawnmower with that money. So the capital projects fund will increase their use of fund balance of $580,000 to replace fire engine 31 that we talked about in the last meeting. And then they will also receive a transfer from the general fund of that $45,880 for the mower replacement. So we recommend at this time that you receive public input and then consider approval of Resolution 23-7.
Okay, thank you, Amber. With that, need to have a motion then to go into public hearing.
Motion. So moved.
Okay, Diane, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Randy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are now in public hearing. If you like to share, just walk up to the mic, give us your name and address, and tell us what you're thinking.
I am Kevin Homer. I live at 5398 South, 4000 West here in Roy. After reviewing the proposal for the 2 budget changes, I would certainly support the expense for the fire engine and conditionally support the expense for the lawnmower with a question. Is there anything that the Parks and Rec Department can do to not have another fire? Other than that, I would support the changes
I'm
to
not
the
sure
budget.
that one's preventable.
No, I don't know anything
I
about
don't
the
know the-
circumstances. I'm sorry, just maybe if we gave it a little thought, we could avoid that
Fortunately,
in
we
the
had enough
future.
water, even though it was a dry year, that it didn't burn up the whole park. But it left a significant burnt spot in the lawn.
That's true.
Anyway, thank you, though.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else like to share a thought? Okay.
Make a motion, we go out of
Seeing none
public
and
hearing.
hearing none. Thank you, Kevin. Then do I have a motion then to go out of a public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Randy. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, council, we're out of public hearing. Any comments or questions for Amber relative to Resolution 23-7?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Then do I have a motion to approve Resolution 23-7, amending the Roy City fiscal year 23 budget?
Motion to approve Resolution 23-7, amending the Roy City FY23 budget.
Thank you, Randy. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sophie. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul.
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Thanks, Amber. Okay. We now have consideration resolution 23-8, resolution amending the Roy City purchasing policy. Amber, you're sharing your thoughts on this one as well, please.
Yes. Okay. So we like to review policies periodically as the needs of the city changes over the years. The purchasing policy was last updated in 2018, and the staff feels the following changes would serve the city better. We added the assistant city manager position to sign purchase orders if the city manager is unavailable. And then the current policy requires purchase orders at any single item cost of $1,500 or more. Purchase orders are not really used like they used to in the past. In the past, vendors required them a lot. They don't really do that anymore. Now they're just used internally for our purchasing policy needs. And with the increase in costs over the last few years, we are needing a lot more purchase orders for regular items every day. This is an added expense to keep buying them over time, and the new policy will require purchase orders for single items of $5,000 or above. This will let us decrease costs by using less paper and will be more efficient. The current policy also requires sealed bids starting at $25,000 per project. The new policy will allow price quotations. That's a formal that we go out and seek 3 bids for things. For items up to $50,000. So the sealed bid won't be required until the project is over $50,000. The sealed bid process is very time consuming, and with the rising cost of everything, we are having to do sealed bids on projects that in the past we wouldn't have had to do a sealed bid for that project. This is delaying us getting projects started and takes us longer to get jobs completed. These amounts were set back in 2012, and we feel the new price proposals here better reflect the current economic conditions. We also removed central stores from the policy. A lot of you might not know what that was, but we had management services department would purchase items for all of the city to use, and we would just purchase them in bulk, and then as departments needed them, we would bill them accordingly for what they needed. Departments aren't doing this anymore. They are purchasing their own stuff on Amazon, and then we had to throw a bunch of stuff away or it becomes outdated. So we just completely took this out of the policy, and departments just purchase their own items. If you don't have any questions, we recommend that you approve Resolution 23-8.
Okay, thank you, Amber. Council comments, questions?
This makes this former purchasing agent's heart full. This is fantastic with how it was written up. So there's a lot more efficiency that you're driving with this and a lot more empowering. I mean, I had these types of purchasing authorities pushed out to like the local schools at very almost similar levels when I was at Granite School District here almost 15 years ago. So
yeah, our capital limit is $5,000,
Right.
so it kind of makes it more streamlined across the board. If you're
100%.
buying something capital, you have to get 3 quotes.
Correct.
If you're over 50,000, you have to do a sealed bid.
Right.
So it's a
And
little
especially
simpler.
leaning into like the internet age, you can use Amazon, whoever else, multiple different online places for the necessary
Yeah, we did
quotes.
add that in there as well, that internet is now can be
allowed.
used for a price quote.
Yeah.
Which we've been doing that anyway. Now it's just officially in the policy.
Right.
I like it. I'm a current purchasing manager with a $60 million budget, so
Yeah.
3 times the city's budget, so I like it. Good
Other-
job.
Other comments, questions, council? Okay, do I have a motion then to approve Resolution 23-8, a resolution amending the Roy City purchasing policy?
Motion to approve Resolution 23-8, a resolution amending the Roy City purchasing policy.
Thank you, Randy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joel. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul. Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. We now have consideration of ordinance number 23-2, amending the Roy City Code, Title I, Chapter 3, Section 2, and adding a definition of a trailer and amending the Roy City Code for Title VI, Chapter 2, Section 1, concerning the street parking. Since Councilmember Wilson was the chair of that committee, I'm going to turn the time and discussion over to Diane, and she can explain exactly where we are. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Mayor. So during the November 1st, 2022 City Council meeting, Officer Curl noted concerns with Roy City trailer parking. And primarily, the term trailer was not included in the ordinance. And at that time, we discussed the best approach forward. And we had thought to do a committee and then a work session. But subsequently, Officer Curl amended his original presentation and recommended we simply add trailer to our ordinance. With that, the committee met together. Officer Curl was there as part of the committee, reviewed that Title VI motor vehicle and traffic portion, and after extensive discussion of the topic, it was felt that there were 2 simple changes that could address the majority of concerns. And with that, it was felt that no subsequent workshop would be necessary. These changes are as noted. The first was to define and add trailer to the current code, and the second was to extend on-street parking from 48 hours to 72 hours. These are reflected in the proposal as noted. It was also discussed that there may be some other associated parking concerns in Chapter 10 that was addressed at a subsequent meeting, and that was eventually decided that most of those concerns were kind of eventually narrowed down to concerns over snow day parking, and that will now be moved to the Planning Commission to be addressed. And so with that, where we don't have or didn't have a public workshop available, I've discussed with the mayor, and the mayor is willing for us to have a time for public comment if anyone would like to make that before we proceed with this. And so I'll ask the mayor if that still works for him.
You bet. Thanks, Diane. So with that comment then, if you have any comments, I'm going to open up for public comments relative to ordinance 23-2. Please walk up to the mic, share your thoughts, ideas, just give us your name and address. Anybody like to share a thought? Okay. Seeing none on that, go ahead, Diane.
With that, we thank those that were part of the committee. We appreciate their time, the city, the staff. And so we just propose that we adopt the changes as noted under ordinance number 23-2, amending Roy City Code title.
Okay. Thank you, Diane. With that then, do I have any other comments or questions from the council?
Yeah, I'd like to know what was the agreement to come up to 72 hours versus 48, because it seems like the police department already struggled to do the 48 hours and extended it another 24 hours. I don't know that that gets us anything. I was in agreement, and I was the one that originally recommended doing the committee, but they wouldn't work around my schedule, so I didn't have the chance to be a part of it. But I'm all for adding the trailers, but I don't think extending it from 48 to 72 gets us anything.
See, my notion with like the 72 hours is coming, say, off of like this last weekend, right, where Monday was a holiday. That 72-hour period would give somebody the ability to park a vehicle in front of their home on Friday and then return to work on, say, Tuesday morning. And so, I mean, it just gives less restrictive use of the frontage portion of their, like the road. Is kind of my notion as far as why I think I was the one that may have tossed out 72 hours.
Okay, other comments, questions, council?
The committee discussed several different options in that regard, and some actually recommended that we increase it to 7 days. We understand that Weber County does that, but looking at different cities, there are several that have 72, some have 48, some are different than that. But for being user-friendly, which is one of the most important parts as we look at even the Title 10, it was felt that this would be a beneficial advancement for us.
Okay, good comment. Any other comments, questions?
Was the officer involved in this commit?
Yes,
that's correct.
Okay.
He was, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
uh-huh.
All right.
It was my understanding, his original was just to amend it to add trailers and the definition of trailers, but somewhere that the 72 got brought up.
Yeah, and he was part of that conversation. Chief Officer Curl was part of that conversation when we went through that committee discussion. Okay?
I do have a question for the chief. I'm going to put you on the spot. I don't know if it's an opinion, but to take it from 48 to 72 hours, what does that do for safety, which was the original thing that Officer Curl was going over, and enforceability?
So as far as the time period, I don't know. I think officers are going to be pretty agnostic. They're just looking for clarity.
Right.
And so adding trailers provides the clarity. If we have issues related to visibility, say they're too close to an intersection, they're too close to a driveway approach, they're they're near a hydrant, like we can take action regardless of the time frame. We're talking about those vehicles that are legally parked that are just sitting on the road. And so having clarity gives them a much greater ability to still do their job regardless of what the time frame is. The hope is that if it's 72 hours, that you as the council or the city manager are going to get less complaints, because most people will hopefully bring their trailers in after 72 hours. There's an argument to be made that after 72 hours, it's probably time you probably need to bring your trailer in. So this will give them an extra day to do so. Again, I think they're agnostic regarding the time period. They just want clarity.
Okay. Well, great
Thank you.
comment. Thank you. Okay, with that then, council, do I have a motion then to approve ordinance 23-2, which is amending the Roy City Title I and Title VI chapters?
I move we consider, that we vote for the consideration of ordinance number 23-2 as stated.
Perfect. Okay, do I have a second?
I'd like to make a motion, we amend it to 48 hours.
Okay, now I have a subsequent motion.
I was
Okay.
going to say,
We have to vote on the amendment. Okay, so we vote on that one first, and then we come back, if that doesn't pass, we come back and vote on the original. I was going to ask you, do we have now a second to the amendment to the ordinance, making it change from 72 to 48? Okay, in lack of not getting a second, we'll go back to the original ordinance, which is a motion to approve ordinance 23-2 as written. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second. This is a roll call vote. Sophie, Brittany, would you go ahead and give us a roll call vote?
Councilmember Scadden.
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul. Aye. Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Nay.
Okay, a majority vote, okay. Obviously, the ordinance passes. Thank you. We have another one, which is the ordinance 23-3, amending the Roy City Code, Section 1-7-4, reestablishing the Community and Economic Development Department. With that, Andy, I believe you're going to share your thoughts on this one.
Sure, and I don't really have much more to say than what I did before, so I could reiterate that if you'd like. But in our code, it establishes our departments that we have. This department was taken out when we didn't have a community and economic development director, and those assignments and duties under those departments were divided, with the city manager taking over economic development, and then management services at one time took over community services. That was later transferred to the city attorney being over that department too. So when we filled this position, now when Brody took over as the economic development director and assistant city manager, we've reestablished that and created that department again as what it was before. So it's just a matter of, like I said.
Procedural.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
Any comments, question, council? I think, just for the record, the question did come up, we're not adding any more additional personnel to this, we're just realigning the organizational structure. Okay, let the record show we're not adding any more bodies. Any other comments, questions?
I make a motion, Mayor, we approve ordinance number 23-3, amending the Royce City Code, Section 1-7-4, reestablishing the Community and Economic Development Department.
So we have a motion then to approve ordinance 23-3. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Sophie? This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That motion and ordinance is approved. Okay, we have some discussion items we need to walk through. Specifically, we're going to discuss the Verizon wireless cell tower. I believe, Brody, you're going to help us with that one. Thank you.
And Mayor, with your permission, I spoke with Ms. Beecraft, who's here to do number 2, and considering the weather and other things, she's wondering if we could switch since I'm required to be be all night anyway.
Yes.
Okay. We're just going to do an alteration in terms of the discussion items, so I'll ask the Arts Council to be first, and then we'll come back to the wireless cell tower.
Just hold it. Yeah. Except if
Thank
you just
you.
turned it off.
No,
Okay, I don't know what I did.
Oh, there you go.
I broke it.
you're good now. I think we can hear you. Go ahead, Marge. Thank you.
So, we focus on the youth a lot with sports, and we decided this year we wanted to do for them. We decided, I'll use my school teacher voice. We decided we wanted to do something in the cultural arts for our junior high and high school students. And so we are having a poetry contest. The theme will be the same that we're going to use for the art building here, that Celebrate Together. Publicity has gone out to them. Okay.
Try net.
There. Publicity has gone out to them.
Still not.
So that they will be aware of it. We do have cash prizes, and our budget almost fits it, but not quite. So in prizes, we have, and you have, I'm assuming you have that in your packet? No. No? Okay, first place is $100, second place $75, third place $50, and that will be at the high school level as well as the junior high level. And then we're going to have a best of show, which will be 125, which totals up to 775. We currently have 500 in our budget plus 123.20 that was left over from our
Gingerbread.
I can't even think of it. What we have last
Gingerbread?
fall?
Gingerbread.
The gingerbread contest that was given to us. So we have a total of 623. So we are charging the youth $5 entry fee, but we have no idea how many are going to be participating. So we could need a little bit more money. We don't know that for sure. But given the size of the prizes, we think we'll have quite a few entries in that. And then as we move on into the show itself, the show they will register on the 9th of March, and on the 18th, they will be judged, and those that are winners, we will have them recite their poetry as part of the awards ceremony that we do for them. And then the library will keep those up through the end of March so that citizens can look at those and enjoy what they have done. So we're moving on into also the concerts in the park. Going to need signage for that, but we just wanted to let you know what we are doing as far as the poetry contest. Any questions?
Where can I find?
efforts.
Oh, sorry.
Pardon?
Where can I find like the flyer or the information for that? So
The
I can post
information
it?
for it?
Yeah.
If you will go to any of the junior high, they should have it posted at the junior high. They were doing digital as well as flyers.
Okay.
And all of the English teachers do have that.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
at both junior high and high school.
Okay, the high school has it too?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Other questions, council? Okay. Thank you, Marge.
Thanks, Marge.
Thank you.
Okay, Verizon Wireless Cell Tower. Brody?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So last council meeting, Mr. Benson from Verizon was here to do a little bit of a presentation, more of a reminder type presentation. He brought up some of the issues. And there was some discussion amongst council, but quite frankly, where we're at, staff needs a little direction on some key issues for that as to how to proceed and what essentially, how much work we need to do to either agree to it, change it, or make it go away. And I hate to be blunt like that, but that's kind of where we're at. So with that, I wrote down 3 questions that essentially we need to have some direction from council to be able to move forward, move on that project however way the council determines. So the first thing we need to discuss is the current location and site plan, where it is. Are we okay with that site plan? The reason specific to it is I know there was some talk about moving it or putting it in a different location still on city property, or if there's a different location available to Verizon in the area. There's a bunch of questions like that. So I guess I would just ask the council some direction for staff on the actual site plan and the location that Verizon is requesting right now.
Okay, council, that's the
I
question.
mean, when I looked at it, I mean, we've talked about over the years, I've been now with Parks and Rec for 3 different seasons. You know, we talk about get the complex up and running, and then at some point look at expanding our current offering at the aquatic center. And the problem is if you put it right where you're looking at putting it, you take out the expansion. So my thought was either move it farther west,
Yeah, it's still on our
or
property. Yeah.
move it farther east and take out a few parking spots and put it right on the edge of the parking lot versus right next to your pool house and, you know, your pavilion and potential area for expansion of property. Because once it's there, you're not getting rid of it.
Correct. And so just so we're in the full disclosure there, the moving it even on that property would essentially, Verizon would, 1, have to want to do that,
Sure.
obviously, but 2, it's going to be a little bit more expensive for them, and it will require essentially longer easements, utility easements from both the city and Rocky Mountain Power to get it to a different location if you move it to the west. So if we say we want it, but we want it moved, that's fine, but there's no guarantee Verizon wants to play that game.
Yeah, I guess I would.
I mean, if they don't, then that's their deal.
Yeah, and I'm not here lobbying for it.
Well, see if they're
doesn't-
amenable to that. See if
Okay.
they preferably, I would probably say it'd be easier for them to go west and go into the far west corner of our property.
Okay.
That way, we still retain the revenue that we're going to get from the long-term lease of it. Because
What
that
is
would be
the revenue of the long term?
$2,200 a month. So it's like 24.
So if
yeah.
okay, so if they do decide to do something different, could they go to another business, or
Oh, yeah.
what would they do?
They could go to the golf course. They could go to there's lots of opportunities for them.
Typically, I think to your question, it would be some other piece of publicly owned land would be the right one, unless they're willing to purchase a piece of property. More than likely, it would be another piece of what Roy City already owns. Could be a public park. We've seen them in those. Certainly, there's some at the one at the Public Works facility today, and so they are currently located in that. But they would try to find a location that's close to a public space.
I mean, I think he indicated they wanted it in that vicinity because there's a dead zone there.
Correct.
That's what they said.
And so, you know, I would go back to him and say, you know, east, west, can you move it to where you're not taking out as much as our expandable property?
Right.
Maybe we'll never expand, but if it's there, I guarantee you we'll never expand.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, that is going to be difficult for the residents there aesthetically, and that's actually a pretty big area, 40 foot by 22.5 foot. That's a pretty big chunk. That's like most of the moderate homes that we have around here. Would it be possible, and how much different would it be if we went east or west, but also maybe went south and put it on the inside of some of the parking or on the inside of our property there? Because then they would have less impact on the residents, the nearby residents, but you'd still have that area where they could get the coverage that they need. And, maybe that would be part of the negotiation of what we need, but that's a pretty big area, actually.
And again, we can look at that. I think the initial thing they're going to tell us is it's a lot more expensive to do that for them because of getting the utilities to a parking lot.
But I think to what I'm hearing, unless I'm hearing something different here, all of you are suggesting is that the current location is not in the best interest of Roy City at this moment, either because of future plans or it may limit what we can or cannot do with existing property, and that you would like to move it. I'm sensing, is the majority is saying to Brody, move it to the west or move it further to the south? Is that a fair statement? Or I think Joe said put it in the parking lot. It'll take some space out, but maybe that's an option. Is that's the consensus? Where it's going is not the right spot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, you talk about more expense, but at the end of the day, I'm more worried about the city than I am Verizon.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can have a conversation with them, kind of see how it is, and then come back to us? Or, because I hate to shut that door and not get that revenue,
Yeah,
but
see how
I don't.
see how agreeable they'd be to
Right.
shift it.
So ultimately, yes, the thought would be that I would speak with Mr. Benson, kind of talk a little bit about
Candidly,
our
yeah.
discussion,
Yeah.
throw out different ideas, see if they're agreeable to any of those. I mean, ultimately, they have a project before the council, so they could just say, put it on for a vote, and, I mean, they have the ability to force that and come in and just say as is, up or down.
Right.
But everything, since I've started communicating with Mr. Benson, he's been nothing but pleasurable to work with, so.
Yeah,
We can
and,
have
and,
those-
and
we
we
can
want
have
more
those
of these types of engagements in the future, because this is free revenue that the city gets, to where we wouldn't have to raise people's taxes because we would have this passive revenue stream coming in. So I want to see a cell tower on every one of our public parks.
I mean, it may cost them a little bit more to get utilities there, but he was talking about how much they're going to have to cut in and build a barrier wall and all that. Well, if you move it to the far end of the parking lot, they may not have to do that because the ground's flatter. The problem is the ground rises up quite a bit there from the back of curb.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to the far corner of the parking lot or far corner to the west, you're a lot more level.
Okay.
And it backs them away from houses a little bit more too.
Yeah, let me. I think, Sophie, that was your point. How about this option then? Council, are you okay with the fact if we ask Brody then to ask, in this case, the representative, to come back with 3 different options? Certainly one putting into the parking lot, Joe, as you suggested. Certainly one that would move it further to the west, and certainly one that would push it further to the south. If they could look at 3 options and come in with that for the council, would you be okay with that approach?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and then the only
Question number 2.
I think you all answered question number 2. 1 and 2 are closely aligned. The third one is just the lease amount. That is a negotiated amount. I know I've had conversations with Councilmember Scadden about what is a fair market for what they're doing. In my conversations with Mr. Benson, his position is basically the amount should be set essentially by the location and the land and the availability of other sites. That's their position.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where we are with that number. Essentially, the way we came up with that number is they used other cities in the area for agreements they've done for similar towers. They indicated that 2,000 was the rate that they've been using. I told them we wanted more, and that's what they came back.
What are they currently paying us for the other tower they have at Public Works?
I'd have to
It's
look.
not them.
Yeah, it's
somebody
lower
different.
because it was signed quite a ways ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question in regards to that. We talk about the 2% annual increase, but what if things change significantly? What ability do we have to renegotiate that? And the second part of that is, what if we decide this isn't working for us? What kind of penalty or criteria would there be to discontinue the tower? What kind of commitment and that sort of thing?
So that
we
would
have?
all that we would get into the details of our lease agreement for that with them. They've kind of given us a standard boilerplate one. Their standard term they're using right now, which is interesting, is a 5-year term. So essentially it would be a 5-year term. That's what they sent Mr. Blackburn and I the other day, which was interesting. But
and after 5 years, if we don't renew it, they just tear it down
and that's what we could get into the details of
That's
all that. If
interesting.
there were terms that
It's a lot of work.
we wanted, then we could negotiate those lease terms as well in the lease agreement. But yeah, to just say, you know, if we signed an agreement and they put up the tower and then next year, like, well, we don't like it, we're ending our lease agreement, usually there would be some pretty stiff penalties with that.
But 5 years is certainly better than I anticipated.
Yeah,
so
no, that's, I looked into that a little more based on some questions I got and was a little surprised at that term. So
5 years, really short term.
Could you do me one favor, reference that? There's obviously a golf course right in the middle of this discussion. I'm not so sure this is a sand trap or what it's going to be, but it would be nice to make sure that at least they brought into the conversation to make sure that we're not causing some impact to the golf course ability to function. So if we can just allow them to be part of this, at least what I'm hearing then is wait for the information based on the price agreement and what you work out on that, but you'll go to them and ask us if they'll propose 3 sites, one south, one north, one to the west, and then from that, the council believes they can probably get to an answer to approve this or not approve it. You okay with that, council?
Yes.
Okay, Brody.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, you're not going too far on this one, Brody. We need to have you talk to us about spring cleanup.
So we spoke a little bit back. There were some conversations last fall about having some sort of citywide cleanup program. What we've got kind of in the works is we do have a kind of a program idea in mind, and what is kind of a few parts to it. What first we'd want to do is have a seasonal code enforcement officer that works with our full-time code enforcement officer. This person would work part-time under the weekly and maximum yearly hour limit. And they would essentially be tasked with proactive investigation throughout the city, specifically with code enforcement along commercial properties and then residential areas. The idea being that that person would be kind of a initial contact point to help facilitate kind of the second part of our program, but to get radar, to get message out that things need to be cleaned up and to help coordinate the cleanup of these areas before we have to turn it over to our full-time guy. So that is kind of the first part. The second part is we would have our full-time code enforcement officer be in charge of coordinating for what we would call community service-based cleanup of areas. What that would do is we would have people who can't clean up the affected problem or need assistance or need just a little bit of help, and that we would use kind of two different volunteer type groups to go in and help those people, so that essentially we're not just coming in screaming and hollering, we're offering a solution for people that really need the assistance. What that would look like is kind of twofold. We'd certainly be willing and love to partner with any type of private group or entity that wants to come in and say, you know, what's on your list, who needs help, and we would have essentially the code enforcement officer there with some city equipment to clean up whatever the code enforcement problem was. The second part of that is there is a huge problem in our court system, not just in Roy but all over, of people who are ordered community service hours through the court that can't find community service. A lot of this started during COVID, so we thought it would be a good way to have people who need some community service hours that could go and help specific residents of Roy City. I've already spoken with all the departments, and they all have personnel and equipment and things that would be available to us within existing budgets. We're not asking for money at this time. Specific to the court-ordered community enforcement, we essentially, until we see how it goes, but we want to keep that separate from private volunteers to just make sure everything was safe and on the up and up. Chief Gwynn indicated that he would be able to have an officer there at that time just to make sure there were no issues. But in my experience in the criminal justice world, a lot of times people that come out of a justice court situation and need community service these aren't hardened criminals. These are just people who made a mistake and want to move on. So we don't see that being a big issue, but we are kind of planning some precautions there.
What about putting a list? I talked about this once before, but putting a list of community groups, like there's Just Serve, there's Scout Troops, there's community organizations that, just throw a list together.
And we at one time had that and did that. I spoke with a couple other council members privately, and I don't want to sound negative, but about 5 years ago, we tried that. Our old code enforcement officer, Mike Story, he had a list and would coordinate with groups and actually send, hey, this person has cancer, they're needing help with their yard, can you do this? And I don't know that it's anybody's fault, but that never came back around to actually see help. Now, whether we needed to coordinate it better or the persons needed to call or the groups needed someone that was tasked more directly to facilitate these, that would certainly be wonderful, but
Well, I'm just thinking out loud. My son's going to be looking for an Eagle Scout project here pretty soon.
Yeah.
If the city had a list of different people that need help, that would be
essentially, when I say that we would love to partner with private entities, the hope would be that if those groups want to, have 5 people who want to do a project on a Friday or a Saturday, they could coordinate that with Chans and use that equipment and have, the support from the city to facilitate that.
And so let me see if I can summarize at least that part of it. Ross, you would, if it was coordinated with the group, you would use your team to drop a dumpster off at a preset location in the morning, I assume. That group would get together, collect all of the garbage, trash, whatever they can across that broader community, put it in that dumpster, and sometime that day your team would go in and remove that dumpster.
So that is one option. What Ross and I are finding out is the dumpsters would have to essentially be watched and supervised by an employee with the city. So that could be an option, and we'd certainly facilitate that. But to just drop dumpsters, we're finding out that the stormwater people are getting quite upset at a lot of cities. So we would either have to purchase new type of dumpsters
Don't want to do
or
that.
have city staff there the entire length of the project, which again, could be coordinated for the right project.
Okay.
might be better to provide a trailer and a pass to the dump.
And that we've also thought at, again, ultimately though, even with trailers, the stormwater, it's still the same issue. But again, the thought is that when we coordinate these projects, there is somebody from the city that would be
intermediary,
there,
yeah,
would be
yeah.
facilitating that. So
Okay.
whether it's with a dumpster or a trailer, again, if these projects if there are people in the community that want these projects to happen, we're at the point where we want to help facilitate it.
How do you want to connect that? I mean, once, and council, this is an important conversation. I would strongly recommend you consider your council corner. I certainly want to use the mayor's message to get the word out that says, hey, we're going to do a cleanup. We need your help. Get your communities together and reach out. How do you see the connection between people who says, hey, I'd like to do this? How do they connect to you?
Yeah, so obviously anyone can contact me directly, but the thought is that we would have something on the website, 2 parts. One, somebody who wants to volunteer, and one, somebody who is requesting assistance, and that would be submitted on the website, and then essentially myself or code enforcement officer who's kind of managing this program would respond to
Coordinate.
those.
Okay.
How much do you anticipate this would cost? What to hire this person?
Yeah, so I think the top figure, if they worked the total maximum amount of hours, would be about 30,000.
And I know sometimes it's easy to think, oh, well, it's part of the budget. Somehow that's free. That we know that that's not free. $30,000 could go to a lot of important things. And so I'm thinking right now we happen to have some staff that need to be repurposed or reallocated for a while the recreation, Roy pool is being done and stuff like that. Instead of putting out extra money, is that something that we could possibly consider doing? And or sounds like you haven't had real good experience with the volunteers, but maybe push that a little bit more so you could have a kind of a core volunteer group that goes to other societies or other agencies, but they could be like the direct liaison through our current code enforcer without having to add or hire an additional one, or just shift the duties at least for this year while we're redoing the pool.
Yeah, that's certainly something we can look into. I know, not to get in too much of the weeds there, but we have kind of some tentative plans for a lot of the staff from the Parks and Recreation Department. So, but if there is an availability there, we would certainly use that. I have no problem with that.
Okay. Anything else, council? Okay, so at this moment, certainly the conversation about seasonal employee needs to be addressed. You might want to look at some options to satisfy that need. But what's our next step? You give us a concept, you give us an idea. What do you want the council to do next for you, Brody?
Just give me a little direction. Obviously, we can look into the staffing and see if that can be done with existing staffing and not have a new person if that's the direction the council wants me to look at. But other than that, unless I guess anyone objects, I would like to make plans to finalize this and have it ready to go. Essentially, the middle of April is where we would start, I think, where that's productive.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you checking into that and to save that additional funding if possible.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, and if you would work with Brittany and make sure we find a way to get the information on the website. I think, council, if you consider using your council corner, I will certainly use the mayor's message to get the message out. Let people reach out then to the city and say, we got a program that's unfolding. See how you might be able to help us make that work, okay?
I just had a quick conversation with Boys and Girls Club, and they were looking for 200 hours of service.
Oh,
and I'll tell you, they couldn't find it, and they were just trying to get their 200 hours for a conference they were getting invited to. And we were like struggling to find.
We hear that. That's actually what kind of started this thought back in the fall. We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
One from court, but even like youth court members and
Yep.
From people all the time. So
I'll send them your way.
That we can have some projects for the community members in need to help.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Brody. Okay, the next one talks about the Welcome to Roy City sign on 5600 South near the I-15. Let me just share the updated information. As you're aware, council, it was discussed before about what to do with that particular sign. And we reached out to UDOT. UDOT indicated to us there is no plans at this moment that they have to remove that sign. So in essence, what we need is Roy City Council, what do you want to do at this point? May I make a point? There are two components to that sign, if you've not looked at it. Certainly there's the waterfall portion, and then there's the Welcome to Roy sign that's out actually in front of it. And so that's what we've got sitting at that location. Roy City staff needs to understand what do you want to do next. Randy, you started the conversation before. Let's go ahead and ask you what you'd like to see happen next.
As I say, Joe Paul sounded like he wanted to jump in. No, but what this came from was
just leave it.
Yeah, as I say, at this point, I don't see outside of I don't think we're going to be refilling the water feature come the summer.
But it is landscape.
Yeah, and that
Recycled water. It is?
It is recycled water?
So
Yeah,
eventually
one of the
we
pumps are down, so
okay.
you need to put a little bit of money into it to get it going.
So that was number one. Number two, I think that we were running up against is the pointing of fingers, because we used to have a really good relationship with Village Inn, and they would maintain like the little green space that's in front of it. Whereas opposed to, I just went blank, they were the
So delicious.
So delicious, yeah. I don't think they're nearly as agreeable to maintaining that as what Village Inn was. So it came down
the
to
city owns it. We ought to maintain it.
And we do own it. And so the question really becomes is it do you like it? Do you think it should be changed? I mean, certainly there needs to be some type of a welcome sign coming into Roy off I-15. And when they expand that to 6 lanes, which is the plan at this moment, I'm telling you, you're going to have a lot of people traveling in that area. I like that sign. You may not like the water feature, okay, so you don't turn it on or you'd make, but the sign is somewhat indicative of what we've established through other places within the city.
Oh, sorry.
But go ahead.
Just wondering what we can do with that, because I don't like to look at it and go, oh, that's broken.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be that needs
Eyesore?
to be
Yeah.
fixed. How come the city's not fixing it? Why does it look so bad? So can we repurpose or revamp it to where it has plants or, I don't know, something in it?
Yes,
No, I know, more water. I'll go water it.
We can put some fake palm trees out in front of it.
Something, yeah.
Rocks.
Okay, so
I don't know. Make it not look
Landscaping.
broken.
You think about that idea.
I don't like it to look broken.
Yeah,
So
because it is
something-
the entrance to a major part of
Yeah.
our city.
Agreed.
And I think Councilmember Sophie basically is saying, hey, if it's going to be there, then clean it up. Make it look something better.
Agreed.
Can we go do, I'll say a field trip, go look at it? Eventually, a couple of us go maybe get some ideas to say, hey, we could do this. Maybe get a landscape design, somebody that does.
There
I would
are a
actually
lot of
like to see it
options.
be raised because it's sunk down so much. It's kind of hard to see it.
I agree. I agree.
Get some lights on it maybe that illuminate a little bit of the sign. I don't know.
So what do you think about Sophie's recommendation?
Yeah, there's boxes and there's,
Can we come back, can the
Yeah.
staff come back to you? You certainly can drive by there anytime, but can staff come back to you and basically says, hey, maybe if we do this to kind of give you some ideas of what we can do at that location?
Why don't we turn it over to the beautification committee?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Who's in charge of that?
She's not here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's give it to beautification.
Okay.
Should have showed up, Ann.
I
You
did
just
see
got
your
a
hand,
project.
okay? And if you'd like, you certainly welcome
Yeah, Dennis,
public
come on up.
input, so please share your thoughts with us.
I'll just, 30 seconds I'll take. Last year, I know the city tried to conserve on water and maintenance of the parks and things like that. And if Ann Jackson is here, she'd probably say, I agree with you, Dennis, but last year, I come off 5600 South, I'm sure all of you do once or twice a day. But last year, the weeds were knee-high or higher most of the time. Sophie, we just need to have the city employees who take care of the parks go maintain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mow the lawn, trim the edge or something like that. Do that for a start, see how it looks, and if we need to put lights on it or something different,
to
flowers,
spruce it up.
Do something, because I know it's going to be a brand new intersection, but that's going to be several years away. For right now, let's just cut the weeds down and take care of it that way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, great comment.
Thanks, Anna.
Okay.
One of the issues that we were running into is that I believe when the agreement to put the sign up in the first place was just kind of a handshake. They own the property. We don't have an easement through there.
Oh, really?
For what that fountain is. That's
We
my
don't own
understanding.
that?
We don't own the property, yeah.
Oh.
So it's actually their property that they supposed to, what?
What's that, Roz? We own the sign.
Own the, we
And the
own
rock waterfall.
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
So that was one of the issues that we were having, that we were wanting to get the restaurant to react to it. We eventually did go in and cut down the weeds, because they were getting out of hand, so.
Okay.
But
Well,
yes,
I
we
think,
can
I
work
think
with
Matt,
that.
I think Sophie's point is well taken. She simply says, hey, we've got something there. Let's come back to the council with some ideas that maybe we can do something. Certainly in the short term, I think your point's well taken. Let's just keep it
Let's
clean.
keep it there, keep it
I
cleaned
mean,
up.
if the bottom line is one of us, the council members, needs to break out a lawnmower, let's go over there and cut that stupid stuff down. We can easily do that. But there really needs to be a long-term solution there.
Yeah, the
So,
whole area didn't have water to it. And
yeah.
Because it was their water lines and things to water it, I believe.
So that is their water too, where you were using?
Not the water to the fountain, but the water to
To
water
the actual,
grass.
the grounds.
Yeah.
But we do have a water line.
Rocket with
Well,
landscape.
Yeah, xeriscaping is really an option, and I think we
Not
can
road
probably look
base.
at that. Well, if you're okay, then council, we'll take Sophie's recommendation, come back to the council with some ideas, and then see if we can't get something that sticks. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Everybody?
Works for me.
I hear a nod?
Sounds good.
Okay. Wow. Got to make sure we get this down. Okay, city will come back with some options. Thank you. Appreciate the input on that. Matt, we're going to talk about the Roy City 5-year strategic strategy plan.
Yes, we
and
did.
work sessions.
We have talked about this in the past, about redoing our strategic plan. I've talked to a lot of the department heads about of thinking about the strategic plan. it was actually obsolete as of about 6 months ago, a year ago, that we need to redo it. The mayor and I have been talking about redoing the strategic plan and thought on Wednesday, the mayor and I and Brody meet, that we kind of develop the strategic plan, but not necessarily the guts of it, and then bring that to the work session. So the strategic plan, you know, the pillars and everything will be done, that we can talk about the separate elements and the things that we want to accomplish. So we can start working on that, the mayor and I and Brody, and then come like budget work session time, we can correlate those two topics together, because this is an important document for me when I'm developing the city's budget. I use this a lot on what we should be doing. And so if we can coordinate those things in a work session.
Do you know what a lean house diagram is? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but.
A lean house diagram.
You kind of talked about it pillars, but it's pillars that hold up the house, and there's, I'll show you one. I think if you developed kind of the lean house and then we plug in the nuts and bolts of it.
Yes, that's the exact thought, so.
Yeah, cool.
You knew what I was talking about.
Okay, we'll go ahead and schedule those work sessions. We're going to probably get you a little busy over the next couple of months, but plan for them, and we'll get this thing ready. I know, Matt, you'll be running into the budget cycle. What time, when do you start pushing your department heads to start formulating budgets?
They already are.
Already started, okay. So we got a little bit of work to do, okay?
Yep.
Okay, with that then, we have city manager's report and council report. Matt?
Yeah, in our current, I wanted to just make the announcement that in our current newsletter, we have advertised for the waste passes. This is something that we've done, this will be our third year. We have leftover waste passes from last year, so they'll be available in the utility office.
Cool.
Also, I mentioned this before, ULCT training, April 19th to the 21st. Brittany has gotten all the travel packets ready. Please come in and see Brittany to sign your travel packets. In our last council meeting, we did talk a little bit about the complex. I just wanted to talk about that just for a quick second. I didn't want to leave everybody hanging that we just dropped the ball and didn't want to bring this back to you, but there's going to be developments this next week with RAMP. They're having their meetings tomorrow. The mayor is usually the first one to know the outcome of these RAMP grants because he gets an email, I believe, like next Monday. So I'm very hopeful for what's to come, but we wanted to hold off on this conversation until our next meeting. So,
Fair.
And then also, last but not least, we'll have Andy Blackburn retiring next week. 21 years here at the city. Yeah. Very good friend. So thank you.
What are you gonna do?
Why?
Your last city council.
Yes.
Thanks,
Yes.
Andy.
Go out with why are you not going out with a bang, Andy? Like, mic drop. Come on. Yeah. There you go.
Can the fire truck hose him down?
Yeah.
on the way
Like,
out or
what can we,
something?
no, it's pretty.
We'll have a little lunch
Cross the
tomorrow at
ladders.
11 o'clock downstairs in the basement.
Yeah.
So everybody's invited. Yep.
Before I make any comments about Andy, anything else you'd like to
Whoa,
share?
that kind of had like a little bit of a weird connotation there, Mayor.
Well,
I have a couple of
I'll
comments
share some
before.
thoughts. Let me just, Joel, you and I have been interchanging on an issue going on Emma Russell. Would you like to just kind of talk a little about your thoughts about Emma Russell?
Yeah, I've kind of brought it up a few times, but it was actually brought to my attention by a resident that lives down in the area. Sounds like on the opposite side of the park that I do. But I walk the park almost daily, and this individual, it seems like, uses the park, that they're concerned about the disrepair of it, that all the swings are gone from the swing set and toys are broken, things are missing. The park's degrading, and a lot of it's because of vandalism, theft, vandalism. I know we put some cameras down there. Unless you get a positive ID, I don't know how much cameras. I find cameras amazing because we can find the nth detail of something on Mars with a camera, but we can't identify a person or a license plate by any cameras we use. It's interesting. Anyway, I don't know if there's any data we can pull from the cameras. Unless you know when it happened, nobody wants to sit and watch a bunch of camera footage. But I think one of the overarching things is people that live in the area, if you see something, say something. I'm constantly sending either a text message to the city manager or the police chief, hey, there's an abandoned car in the parking lot, or hey, there's somebody sleeping in a car in the parking lot. I think we just need to be on the watch, but then, can we come up with a plan to revamp some of the equipment down there and hope that it'll stay? You can't chain the swings because they're already on a chain.
I can speak to some of that. I talked with Mr. Fulton this morning, actually, and a lot of this vandalism was actually Friday and Saturday, basically the first day we had warm weather. Some of the equipment has been known about, specifically the swings. There's a couple other things on the playground equipment that, quite frankly, are back ordered. And what it comes down to is when you're ordering 6 swings instead of 600, we're kind of lower on the list, so we're just waiting for those to come in and fix them. They are having some plans to fix equipment, not only there, but throughout the whole city. But specific to the vandalism, I know Chief's going to investigate it and do what we can, but
That would make sense because I was out of town from Thursday through the weekend. That's
and
why
they
I didn't
actually-
see anything.
A little shout out, Parks Department actually heard about it. I assume actually quicker than everybody. There was actually at the fish pond, there was a lot of graffiti and tagging done that they actually cleaned up Friday. That happened Thursday night. They actually cleaned it all up Friday. So the Parks Department is doing their best. One hard thing about Emma Russell and some of the spray paint or the tagging is the surfaces that it's on, you can't really clean very well until it's warmer. So it makes it really hard to clean up immediately, but they're doing their best and they have ordered equipment. And if anybody has some bright ideas on how to stop it, we'd be
I don't know
all
how to
ears.
stop it, but we do have, they're technically not in our community, but they're close, Lifetime Products. I'm connected with them to see if maybe we can get some stuff if that's in our wheelhouse of equipment we're looking for. I'm pretty connected with Lifetime, different things like that. But I do think, and I don't know when my article comes up, but maybe that's what I write about is basically if you see something, say something. If something looks out of place or not right, or even if you didn't catch the vandalism happening, as soon as it happens, let us know so we can go back and look at footage and things like that. So.
And our departments were looking at the footage today. One of the issues is the spray paint was done inside of a tube and not outside. And so they were trying to identify who went in there and at what time. There was, there's 48 hours of footage they were looking through, trying to identify somebody to get a better picture. So we are looking into it.
And I think maybe, Matt, if you can help, because you and I talked about it, it's not unique to Emma Russell. We've had issues with George Wallen. We've had issues with West Park. What are some of the things that we've seen recently, Matt, you can explain in terms of how we're really trying to address this issue?
Well, I think the cameras have done some good in other areas. At West, we did catch somebody. We were able to put their photographs online and find out who they were. But also, just like Joe was saying, see something, say something. As soon as we know about it and go back, there was an incident at Emma Russell that one of the soccer goals got, it was actually blown over and the wind broke it. But it took us quite a while to find out when that happened, but we originally thought that was vandalism as well. So those cameras have done a lot of good, but they're not a fix-all. We only have a couple of cameras over in the park, and you have to be in the right areas to see stuff. So
What about a flyer, creating some kind of a flyer and handing it out to, or mailing it out to everybody that borders a park? And just say, you border our park, if you see something, say something, here's a number to call. Just food for thought. I mean, every time I get in a bus or a train, there's something that says text something, see something, say something. Somehow we got to get the word out.
Yeah, certainly. I think you're pushing your article, 15,000 receivers of the Roy's Connect magazine. I'd certainly recommend, if you're going to have a part of the next meeting or the next couple of publications of that, please use this opportunity to try to get that message out, because I think Joe's right. We got to get more public involvement. But I also think there has to be an element of responsibility that if, in fact, we do catch individuals deliberately damaging, public spaces, and we've had too many of those, there has to be an accountability. And if that means we stand in front of a judge and we basically hold that parent or hold that child accountable, then so be it. I know Matt was correct. He says you want to get people's attention, Just get the picture of them, put it on a Facebook page, and tell them we're looking for this individual and see how fast those people get nervous. But we're spending way too much money. You alluded to it, Brody. It's not a swing set where you go down and spend $15 and buy a chain, okay, with a seat on it. This is probably a few $100s for each one of those, and they're damaged. And unless we're willing to basically step up and start holding people accountable, both the parents and oftentimes the child, my fear is going to be this is just going to continue. And all it takes is some type of a social media avenue by which they're testing people that says, well, go out and do this and do that, and all of a sudden we find this kind of destruction. It's just off the charts. We have got to nip this, and I know only one way to nip it: hold people accountable.
Catch one.
So we got to find better ways. If that means we got to get better camera systems, Joe, you alluded to that. And oh, by the way, you might find this interesting, but I just happen to work on cameras that able to check your license plate from pretty high altitude. So the technology's there. We just don't know if we have the money to do that. But maybe we have to invest.
If China can put balloons in the air over the top of us, we ought to be able to figure
We
something
have
out.
to do something, I agree. But we've got to find an answer here, and we've got to hold people accountable. And when you hold somebody accountable, the message gets out clear, and we've got to do that. As painful as that is, we've got to do that. It just, we're spending way too much taxpayers' money fixing damage that we should never have done in the first place. So, anything else you want to share with us on that, Joe?
Like what you were saying, it's not just Emma Russell. We've had problems everywhere.
Yeah.
In all our public parks, the school's been having issues over there as well. Not just in our community, but others. But I think really these are our kids doing it, that they need to be held accountable, so.
That's right. Okay. Anything else, council, before I make my last comment?
I have a couple things. So March 18th, please put that on your calendar for the poetry night for the community and for all the council to come to. And then April 17th, I've spoken with Matt and Mike Pusey, and it's going to be the spring sports dinner night. And they're going to do the same thing, hamburgers and french fries for the spring sports.
That was what day? April what?
April 17th.
Perfect.
Sorry about that.
Ms. Parker, you have anything you want to share with us?
I did want to give a little shout out and a thank you to Roy Communities That Care for coming and doing the carnations on Valentine's Day. That was so fun, and I know it made people happy to get flowers, so that was great.
Perfect.
So thank you.
Okay, thank
Sophie
you.
was there. I mean, Councilwoman Paul.
Anything else?
The only thing I was just going to follow up on was the PFAS thing that was talked about. That's one thing we're really starting to drill down in with the sewer district, because we're starting to be regulated on it, because obviously what comes in, we have to treat it before it goes out into the lake. And so just be cautious and aware of what you're flushing down the toilet, down the drains. Flushable wipes, as much as they say they're flushable, they're really not. And so just be aware and cautious of what you're putting in the drain. We're having to spend more and more money to put equipment in to process water before it even hits the plant, collect water. And so unfortunately, that all gets passed on to the end user. So we all pay for, the few that choose not to follow the guidelines. So
Great comment.
I'll
Okay.
just- I'm just gonna
Go ahead, Diane.
I just wanted to publicly thank Andy Blackburn for his many years of service, and especially his many hours of my time being here on the council. You have made the experience so much better because of that. You have been an advocate for citizens and staff and been able to balance that. I think that your legacy is going to be very rich and hard to, we just won't be able to meet those same standards that you've had. You've been an excellent mentor, and you're just, an ace in the hole that we're going to lose. But we want to thank you for your time. I just can't thank you enough for your wisdom, your patience, your kindness, your example. You are very patient with us, even though we could probably infuriate you immensely. But you hold on and you still smile. And thanks again, and wish you the very, very best with all your new adventures. Thank you very much, Andy.
Thanks, Diane. I really
And
appreciate
Diane,
that.
you must have grabbed my worksheet,
I
because
was
that's
gonna say,
exactly.
yeah, verbatim.
Oh, so sorry.
I just want to say sorry that it took my rookie year as a city council member to get you out the door. So,
Andy, I will just
Sorry.
say this, okay? We have been we've been on a long trail together,
Long time.
okay? We've seen a lot of things. There's been a lot of things that we probably wish we would not have seen. This kind of business, dealing in these public issues, are hard. They're difficult sometimes, and to be honest with you, going to Diane's point, I probably have never met a person more patient than you. You have gone through a lot with this city, okay? Ups and downs. You've been, in my opinion, abused. I hate to say that I probably abused you a couple of those times, but you have been so patient, so professional. You've been a person who fundamentally can just take these issues and recognize that oftentimes they're short term, and they're really not really purposeful to say that this is what we mean, because we're dealing with issues that oftentimes are powered by emotion. But you have been able to bring some calmness, oftentimes in the most difficult, troublesome times, and there's some wisdom to that. I think you learned a lot about how to be not only a professional, certainly a great city attorney, but more importantly, I think you've been a great person. You have fundamentally been able to do things that I've never seen done before. That part I will miss, okay, personally, because you have been very patient with all of us, and you've been able to provide guidance. But most importantly, there's something to be said about calm in the midst of a storm. You have been that calming influence, and I'll tell you, it makes all the difference. So thank you. We can't say thank you enough. The only thing we'd ask would be is, please come back. Let us know how you're doing, okay?
I'm sure I'll be watching these meetings on YouTube.
I think you might be stretching a little bit there, but that's...
I'm stretching a little bit, but thanks for the kind words. I really appreciate that. It's really nice, and this is such a great place to work. Driving to work today and lately, I think, what am I going to? I really like coming to work here every day, and I, working with Matt, and Brittany, and Brody, and the rest of the department heads. It's just a great group of people, and working with the council, it's really been a good experience, and I really enjoy it. But for the fact that I'm getting old, I would continue on. But when I think about going one more year, I'm almost 67 right now. I don't want to be 68 and retiring. So that's what it comes down to, really, is I'm just getting old. So.
You do well.
You never know.
You did well.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. So.
You're going to be missed.
Yeah. And thank you.
Yep.
Okay? We can't
Thank
say
you
enough
all.
of
I really
that.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, with that, council, do I have a motion then to adjourn?
So moved.
And Joe, I almost wrote your name before you said it, okay? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Took a little bit of time. Thank you, Sophie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
But
We are
remember,
adjourned.
after a 5-minute break, we'll all be back
5-minute
for an
break.
RDA meeting.
We do have an RDA board meeting right after this, so council, if you please, take 5 minutes and let us come back and
She's first on the agenda tomorrow, so I'll ask her right out of the gate.
The idea isn't variable. An example, we always said, don't say You have to analyze it. Oh, I'm gonna get a volunteer. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm gonna start interviewing.
See ya. Like, you know, the other day, I had to pull my trailer out, backhoe my razors, my touch, like, didn't work on. Mad, but I walked the road for maybe 10 minutes.
Back up. They'll come back so close to hitting us. Yeah. So we'll have to move.
I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, well, thanks. It's unbelievable. Several hundred thousand. I was so excited. I was stuck in a hotel room in Kansas City, and I went.
Joe.
Joe, you're being.
Let's go ahead and get started.
Agreed. Agreed. But drive safe. Safe travels.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, well, I recognize,
I'm glad somebody did.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'd like to welcome you to the Roy City RDA Board Meeting for February 21st, 2023. The time is now 7:48. I want to recognize that we do have Board Member Scadden with us tonight. We have Board Member Jackson with us tonight, Board Member Sophie Paul, Board Member...
It's not here.
Oh, excuse me, we don't have Board Member Ann tonight, sorry. Board Member Wilson and Board Member Joe Paul with us tonight. We do have boards, we do have a consent item, specifically the June 28th, 2022 Roy City RDA Board Meeting Minutes. June 28th?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw that. Is that?
She's a little backlogged.
Wow, okay. I hope we can remember back then. Okay. Any comments, questions, council, relative to those minutes? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none, do I have a motion then to approve the consent items?
Motion, so moved, yeah.
Okay, Randy, do I have a second?
I'm second it.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, those are approved. Thank you. We do have some action items. Let's work through the action items. Consideration of RDA Resolution 23-1, a resolution approving the Economic Strategic Plan. And I do believe, Brody, you're going to talk this one with us.
So, board members, after last time, we got some direction on kind of what I would call a more fit economic development plan. We tried to put that together, again, very focused, very targeted on issues and challenges that we're facing right now. So before you is that plan. If there's any questions or concern, I'm happy to address them if I can. But yeah.
Okay, thank you, Brody. Comments, questions, council or board?
Yes, I just wanted to readdress the cleanup effort there. So as you already know, I'm thinking that it would be nicer not to hire a person there and see what we can do to readjust, kind of already discussed that. First of all, see how it works, see how it goes before we've kind of committed to those funds. But then I was also wondering on the bottom point there, wondering if you could explain the budget for cleanup with the leaner abatement follow-up. Just kind of explain that budget a little bit more, where that comes from and what you're referring to there.
Yeah, so this is something we've talked about, quite frankly, since I've been at Roy. There is a process legally to go in and what's called abate properties and get a judge to look over the situation and basically approve the city to do the work to clean up a property. Well, the city would then put a lien on the property and get paid back either by the owner or in the sale of said property. It's something that we would use in kind of extreme or dire circumstances. The issue, not the issue, but we've talked about having this process. We've actually started to do a little research on how to maybe refine and streamline this process. There's some other cities that are doing that with administrative hearings and things like that. We're kind of doing some legal research on that now. But ultimately, it doesn't go anywhere if we don't have a budget that the city can operate on, essentially to do the work and then wait to get paid. There's that lag that, quite frankly, if the city wanted a house, fixed, or a house was abandoned or on fire and we wanted to demolish the house or clean up whatever thing, we can do that. We just have never had the funds to...
You have to front the money
to
until it goes through the court system.
So this is something I thought that we should look into, one, legally on how to make our process better within the city, but then also to have a fund amount to look into projects like that. So that is something that we are researching and we would present to the board before doing it or allocating any money, but that's what that is.
Is the city not allowed to issue, say, like what a general contractor would do in the form of like a mechanic's lien if we do work?
So I don't think we can do a mechanics lien, but we would file just
It's
a
effectively
lien
the
on the
same.
property.
It's effectively
On the
the same,
property.
so I'm just, but we're just doing from a
It's like a
judicial
mechanics
perspective.
lien.
Yeah, it's effectively the same.
Essentially, the city, though, has to have judicial approval
Gotcha.
to be able to do it. Otherwise, our lien would be invalid.
But there already language within the city code that authorizes you to do what you just talked about.
Correct.
So it's written, if you go in and read it. What is not included in that is any funding
Right.
to
Any
execute it.
It- We can do it now in theory. It's always just been practicality, like, okay, well, the shed burned down and the people left. We want the shed tore down for safety reasons. It's okay, but it's gonna cost us $9,000 to take the
Right.
shed down.
Right.
So we would need some sort of a fund to be able to do those kind of projects.
And you anticipate that would be coming out of RDA funds then? I
I
guess
think it could
because
be
of this,
RDA
or would it
funds,
be
or it
somewhere
also
else?
could be council funds. We would
Yep.
research that.
Yeah, depending on the location of the property mainly, so.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's in a project area,
If it's in a project area, it can come out of RDA funds.
So what are the odds or chances of us being reimbursed for that fronting of the money? Is it pretty good, I guess, or we wouldn't do it unless it is pretty good, or?
Yeah, so we will be reimbursed. It's a question of when.
When?
Okay.
It's a
Right,
timing.
if you put a lien on the property and for whatever happens, the trust of a trust of a trust that owns it just never sells the property, then,
I see.
unless they come in and want to pay us back. Earlier in my career, when I was with the county, we did this, not often, but routinely, a few times a year. And in some cases, the homeowner would make payment arrangements to pay back the lien amount. On other times, we had to wait till the property was sold.
Sold.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Disposition of property.
Has the city ever come across a situation where they've needed this, or this has been like, oh, we could use this right now?
Oh, yeah. So we don't
Okay.
bring those areas up in public, okay? There has been some, maybe off station, ask that same question to Matt. We can actually point you to where some of that really need to be done, and there was no
You could
funding.
have, there's a
Oh, yeah,
need for it. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, council, good comments, good questions. Thanks for the response. Any other comments to Resolution 23-1? Okay, do I have a motion then to approve RDA Resolution 23-1, a resolution approving the Economic Strategic Strategy Plan?
So moved.
Thank you, Sophie. Do I have a
Second.
second? Joe?
second.
Okay, this is a roll call vote.
Board Member Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Board Member Scadden,
Aye.
Board Member Joe Paul,
Aye.
Board Member Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. It's approved. Consideration of RDA Resolution 23-2, a resolution approving the tax increment funding funds policy. Brody?
Yeah, so again, after our last board meeting, staff was tasked to come up with a policy. The mayor and Matt and myself spoke about this. We actually did a lot of research. The mayor sent me some ideas, which I've woven into this policy. And this would be our guideline for future projects, requesting TIF, something that is going to happen. There's no doubt about it. And the biggest thing with this policy is we wanted to draft it so that we had some guidance. We had a process that applicants could follow and that the board could follow, but not a policy that was a checklist or a something that was so elegant and beautiful that it tied our hands later on down the road. We wanted to make it, we wanted to make it mean something and have some structure there, but ultimately allow a lot of flexibility, because I think the board indicated, and certainly my belief, we want the flexibility to approve projects that make sense for not only the RDA, but for the city, for the other taxing entities, for all the things that we go on. So I essentially took a lot of what the mayor put together and added some of it, added my own language, kind of edited some of it and put together something that I think hits that objective, where we do have a process that anyone can read this document and know what they have to do, and also gives us some guidance. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we can pick projects that we like, that are positive for all the areas, and no one can come in here and hit a checklist that we make and say, you have to give it because I hit your checklist. So that's ultimately the goal and why we drafted it this way. So again, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them best I can.
Okay, great
This isn't a
comments.
question, it's more of a statement. I was talking to one of the gentlemen out there, and I'd heard this, but he kind of reaffirmed it. Now I want to go research it, that the economists, whatever you call them, economists, are predicting major fail rates in economic loans for commercial properties. So that's interesting to think about that as in the very near future, that they're anticipating defaults on a lot of commercial development loans.
Okay, other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none then, I'm
I
sorry,
had
go
one
ahead,
other question.
Diane.
I was just wondering, what would, if someone accepted or was given some TIF funding, what would negate that where they would have to pay it back? Say the project goes forward, or where we don't have a specific set of items, we have a general rule of thumb. What would they have to do or not do to have to pay that back?
Those stipulations are typically when we do the agreement with the contractor or the developer. So if they fail to do X, Y, or Z, that's when that type of stuff comes
Okay,
up. And
not specifically
necessarily
from
here with
this.
the policy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And that is a good clarification. The policy is essentially just how we analyze it on the front end.
Right.
And then those
in
kind of
agreement.
details, we would get into the actual agreement for the TIF funds, and that's where we could negotiate those type of things.
Thank you.
And there's so many different ways to do TIF. So sometimes it's an ongoing thing where they're getting money. Sometimes it's upfront money. Sometimes it's through loans. There's just so many different things that we could be doing. So it all just depends. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great comments, okay. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none then, do I have a motion to approve RDA Resolution 23-2, a resolution approving the tax increment funding policy?
So moved.
Randy, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sophie. This is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Board Member Wilson,
Aye.
Board Member Joe Paul,
Aye.
Board Member Scadden,
Aye.
Board Member Sophie Paul.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That's approved. Consideration of RDA Resolution 23-3, a resolution terminating the revolving loan fund program and the relocation grant program. Matt?
Yes, thank you. So we've had a couple of discussions in previous RDA meetings, and the board gave staff the directive to come up with a resolution to terminate these two programs. That is exactly what Resolution 23-3 does, is it does terminate the revolving loan program and the relocation grant program that has been previously approved through the RDA. So
I have a
turn it over to you.
question in regards to the current ones that are working out well and that the one that is behind. Does there need to be any wording that this is from here on out, or how does that work for the current ones?
With the loans, I don't think so. It would just be, the current loan, we still have a loan with them. We've signed the documentations, everything like that. As far as the relocation grant program, if they applied within that grant period, and today would be the term date of that, if they applied before today, they would still, that we would still bring their application
And we have
toward the
one
board.
current application.
We have one current application. We have 0 applications for the loan program. We just have one current loan through the loan program.
Right.
The relocation.
So no, I do not believe that we need something in there for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, board? Okay,
Motion
hearing
we
none.
approve.
Did I hear approval of Resolution 23-3?
Yeah, I was trying to get to it to read that, yes.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Board Member Scadden,
Aye.
Board Member Joe Paul,
Aye.
Board Member Sophie Paul,
Aye.
Board Member Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That carries. We do have 2 discussion items. One would be as a report on the meeting we had with Woodbury. Matt, you and Brody are lead this off.
We'll
Go
kind of
ahead.
tag team this. So really, just wanted to bring back to the board a conversation that Brody, Mayor, and myself had with the Woodbury Corporation. about the Royce development over next to Harmon's. Really, they've came up with a project. They've came to us and talked about some of the shortfalls that they have. So currently what we're doing is there's a little bit of cleanup that we have to do with the CRA in that area. And we haven't triggered that with the taxing agency. So we have to do all that to get the participation from the school district, from mosquito abatement, everything like that, in order to generate any type of TIF in that area. But then also we're looking at different things that we could do, like different type of ways that we could provide TIF for the Woodburys, and then we'll circle back around. But we just wanted to have a brief conversation to let the board know that we did have that conversation with their group, so. we'll be currently
I think
working on it.
anything we do with TIF needs to be tied to commercial, even in light of what I just said.
Ro, do you want to share any thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, just briefly, I think Matt hit it perfectly. I mean, there are some potential projects coming in, and we'll get into the details of those. There's definitely a lot of research and things that myself and Rob Sant are working on right now to make sure we have all the options and all the information when we bring those decisions forward. And we're excited about them and look forward to having those conversations.
Who does Rob currently work for?
He works for Sandy City.
Okay. Any comments, questions, board? Okay. We have one more, which talks about the report, just an updated report on the letter to property owners in the downtown district. Brody, you want to talk about what you did?
Yeah, we drafted a letter that the mayor electronically signed, because I think there ended up being about 140 of them. Basically just indicated some of the changes to the downtown zone and those type of things. There was a map that went out indicating where the zoning changes were, and just we sent it to all the property owners in those areas. And just talking about the availability of different types of projects, mixed use availability, and those type of things. As of right now, we only got 3 of them that were returned for bad addresses, and all those were some entity of the state government, so not too worried about that. And I actually just this morning had an individual email me and left me a voicemail. I wasn't able to call him back, but he has a property that he thought UDOT was maybe going to take, but looks like they're not now, and he, based on that letter, wanted to have a conversation about his options. So starting to get some feedback from it, and the little bit of feedback we had was very positive, turned out to be a pretty good thing.
Is that a letter you can share with us, or?
Yeah, we have it. I can send it out to the board.
Thank you.
Are you talking about the email?
Yeah,
Yeah.
The email or the letter? Sorry.
the letter.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, the original letter that was sent
Yeah,
out?
to
Okay.
the businesses.
Okay.
Yeah, just yeah.
Yeah, we can send, we have a scanned copy that we can just send over. Cool.
Perfect. Okay. Board, anything else you'd like to talk about before I go for a motion to adjourn? Okay.
I
do
make a
have
motion we adjourn.
Okay, you got Joe down. I should just make that permanent. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sophie. I was getting a little concerned there. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you so much. We got a lot accomplished tonight.
If it means anything to you, I'm always the one that adjourns the sewer board meeting too, so.
That's okay.
Jump in and like take that from
You have to beat him.
You gotta be quick.
You gotta be quick.